All right. So thank you so much for joining us today in our masterclass, Velocity Amplified Strategies for Driving Retail Sales. My name is Alexandra, and I'm a marketing director at Vdriven. And for those of you who are new here and don't know Vdriven yet, we help early stage CPG brands grow and scale in retail through our suite of services, including sales and brand management, CPG accounting, and production management. This webinar is a part of our masterclass series where we invite industry experts to share their knowledge and experience with our community of brands and partners. Before we start, this masterclass will be for about 1 hour. Luke will share his presentation, and then after, we'll have enough time for your questions. So feel free to drop your questions in the Q&A box or in the chat box. We'll try to do our best to answer any questions that you have. And yeah, I think I'm gonna invite Luke to join us and start the presentation.
Fantastic. Thank you, Sasha. I will get going here. Having some video challenges this morning, but that will not affect my ability to share my presentation. So we'll dig right in. Give me 1 second here. And here we go. So this is the Velocity Amplified Strategies for Driving Retail CPG Success. I'm going to spend the next 25 to 30 minutes sharing some slides with you with some key learnings that my team and I have garnered over the years. And as Sasha said, we'd love to hear your questions. We'll have about 30 or even more minutes than that if there are more questions, and we will get through them all. So let's get started. So my background, for those that don't know me, I started in my early 20s at a company called Monterey Provision. Worked my way up from the bottom, eventually purchased the company, and my team and I scaled it into a national food distributor. I eventually sold that company to KeHE, where I ran the fresh division for a couple of years. And then my quasi-retirement job was going to Jimbo's as president there. And then I started Vdriven. And it's been an amazing journey. And I think Sasha gave you some background on what we do. But we work with dozens and dozens of brands, helping in every possible way to help them scale. Also, you see University of San Diego. I late last year, early this year, I also was a adjunct professor at the University of San Diego in supply chain. So had a fun career, and I'm so grateful to have the opportunity to share my learnings with you today. So we'll dig into this idea that velocity starts with the core. I'll explain this core concept. We use it internally at Vdriven all the time. And I think it's good that we start there. And then talking about the things we need to do before we hit the shelf. And then once we're on shelf, how do we drive velocity? And then certainly tracking success. So let's dig in. The core, this is a model that we developed at Vdriven on the right-hand side of your screen. It's this idea that if I get the core right, it's so much more efficient in terms of cash and energy to grow velocity and overall volume for my brand. So the idea of like research and development, do I have the right product at the right time in the market? Are my COGS good? A lot of brands we work with don't think about COGS enough and how to be as efficient as we can. But every penny of COGS that we still have in this system that doesn't need to be there can result in 2.5 to 3 cents higher retail, or certainly compressed margins. Retails today are more important than ever. I look at, we purchase spends data, and we work with a number of clients that leverage spends as well. And what we're seeing is that consumers are willing to trade down. They're buying more on promo. They're pretty much on strike relative to all the inflation that has happened. And so that retail is so important today. Production, manufacturing, do I have the right, am I out certainly producing the product through the co-manufacture in our own plant in a way that is sustainable, and branding and packaging. We work with a number of D2C brands who are selling like on Amazon, their own websites, and they come into retail and they're like, well, what's happening? Why is my velocity where it needs to be? And well, gosh, on shelf, the packaging and branding has so much more work to do than it does in the D2C environment. But if I get all those things right, then I don't have to spend as much money on PR. I can save money on promotions, on marketing levers, on placement fees. And so it's so much easier. And we work with dozens of brands, helping them to break into the market. When we get that core correct, it's almost like we're being demanded instead of trying to push into retail. So that I just want to make that point because it's so core. If you're having challenges in velocity, I would encourage you to go back to the core and evaluate your brand relative to it. And also to note that it's very common when we're launching brands that we will adjust packaging a few times that first year, that we will adjust retails, that we'll continue to adjust. Because at the end of the day, all we have is a hypothesis that this product, at this time, at this price, with this packaging is the right thing. And the market will give us information back that we have a choice on how to respond to. Oh, unless I can start my video now. Perfect. Okay. So a strong core creates alignment with the market. Like I was saying, a weak core requires more money to drive equivalent velocities. And I tried to create some imagery here. So strong core is like this flow velocity. It's a lot less work. People are ideally like there's a natural demand being created for the product. Retailers are seeking me out, and I'm not having to spend a fortune to make that happen. And with the weak core, not as much flow. I'm having to spend money all over the place on different tactics and levers to compensate for the fact that my core is weak. So prior to launch, so let's say we've got an authorization, or we're almost an authorization. There's a lot of things we want to do to make sure that we're ready to go once we're on shelf. So this is one thing. This is like the takeaway of takeaways is always clarify what winning looks like. When you get an authorization from a category manager, ask them what the goal velocity or target velocity. I've only had a couple category managers not tell me in my career. In general, they want to let you know what winning is. And even if they do tell you, I always recommend still getting competitor data. I've had a number of times where we've had a category manager who was just being nice to us and gave us a number and then ended up getting discontinued because we really just weren't getting to the point of being competitive with everybody else on the shelf. So I always like getting the information from the category manager and then also seeing where we stand relative to the competition on shelf. Leveraging information from key advisors, brokers, distributors to understand all the costs involved. For our company, I call on Sprouts, and it's so important to understand like what it costs to be on shelf. And I highly recommend working with your advisors to create a 1-year forecast, because that thing's more of a buzz kill or a velocity kill than I ran out of money and I can't do my promotions, ads, demos, or even be on shelf anymore because it costs more than I thought. This second check mark is one that I get, especially from emerging brands, a lot, right? It's like, be careful to accurately anticipate distributor costs. When you open up a new distribution center, there's a 15% OI, usually for the first 2 months. The free fill that you're giving to Whole Foods or Sprouts is billed back at the highest list price, not on what you charge the distributor. There's setup fees, MCB fees. So really important we capture those. This is the area where I find people are so surprised every time. And then brands that build communities. I would have said at the beginning of COVID 2020, I remember working with brands and we didn't see the community building as being important. What mattered what was happening at shelf. More and more, there are brands, and this example here, Coconut Cult, where they have the founder who, it's not some highly paid influencer, but this guy does great. And when they introduce new products, there's already a market for it, and you can see like 120,000 followers on Instagram. This one video on the left-hand side had 707,000 views on TikTok. Their brand has 254,000 likes on TikTok. So this is built pretty organically, and that community is able to be leveraged. Like, hey, community, we're launching in Whole Foods. We need you to come support us. It really does make a difference. And I was speaking to a leader from one of the 2 largest natural retailers in America, and they said the number one predictor of success that they're finding today for a brand that they think makes sense already is a community that exists. So this is the one that I think has changed the most in the last few years for retail. Never underestimate the importance of your supply chain. I've launched so many products, and this is some of the learnings is, does the opening order make sense? Is it way too low? Hey, maybe you need to talk to that buyer. And I strongly encourage brands to be building a strong relationship with the buyers, the people who are doing the replenishment buying at KeHE Unify and other distributors. Why not ask them, hey, what's driving this order if it's much smaller than you want? And then on the other side, if it's much larger, I've had people celebrate and go crazy only to have KeHE say, hey, we're going to have to donate all this product and you to pay for it all. So really important that you're dialed in on that. Does the date of the PO work relative to the retailer reset dates? We can't assume that the distributor is operating on all cylinders, and you have to be responsible to make sure everything kind of makes sense. Did the product make it into the cross-dock DCs? So if, for example, KeHE's picking up from you in LA and you have a national Sprouts launch, the product will go to Chino and cross-dock to all the other distribution centers. And does the timing all work out? It often takes 21 days to get across the country. And then did the product ship out? If you're, for example, launching at Sprouts, you can access KeHE Connect to understand, hey, is that inventory depleting? Is it getting out to the stores in time? For Unify, generally you need to pay for it separately, but you also can access the same type of data. And then maybe the one key here as it relates to velocity and distributors is I highly recommend we look at our distributors as being like drayage companies. They're almost like 3PLs. They try to order, they try to manage inventory. Ultimately, though, you're responsible to make sure everything's operating well. Let's go. So realize that larger retailer promotions must be submitted months in advance. I've seen this happen so many times. We're launching a new product. We're all so excited. We're all giving high fives, but then we don't get the promotions entered, right? So it's so important that we're thinking about, oh, when do promotions need to be submitted relative to when we're launching? I highly recommend promoting for the first time in month 2 after launch. Generally, the first month is not ideal because they're just trying to get on shelf. So oftentimes people are very disappointed with what happens there. And consider promoting for 18 to 24 weeks the first year. So thinking about that velocity, right? Like I need to get enough people to try the product and like it, continue buying the product as soon as possible to make sure I'm not discontinued that first year and within the first 6 months I've seen it happen, right? So we need to get out of that gate going. I'm at 18 to 24 weeks. I'm going to maybe aim for more of that at the beginning of that first year than toward the end. Again, depending on what makes sense relative to your product and for that retailer. But the launch is so critical to make sure that we're spending on that promotion. So now we're on shelf, and what are we going to do to make sure we get off? So let's dig into that. So demos, and just for full disclosure, I used to own a national food demo company. And so I have a lot of experience in this area, and I think this is an area that often is underappreciated, especially in the natural channel. So demos, here's the check marks. If you see them, measure post-demo velocity at stores to check the efficacy of demos. This is really important. So we're doing a demo. We move a lot of product during the demo. And then we want to make sure that actually is causing consumers to stick. If they're not sticking, if you're not seeing a post-demo velocity lift, there could be a number of things going on, right? Maybe I fell off shelf. Maybe they're not reordering my product. Maybe consumers aren't liking it. And again, all we have is a hypothesis when we're launching a product. And demos are a great opportunity to get feedback to figure out if our product really is the right product at the right time in the right place. I also recommend doing demos month 2 to make sure you're on shelf and not sending demo people at $200 a demo into stores to do demos for product that's not there. Where possible in that month 2, and it's not always possible, I like to ask for a plus out or forcing out product into the stores to make sure there's product there when my demo people get there. It's so important because otherwise they show up nothing to demo, or they have maybe only a little bit and they're demoing and people can't buy the product you're demoing. So that would be a total waste. And I highly recommend starting your demos in the top 20% of stores. You really want to be in stores that have higher foot traffic to get the bang for the buck, if you will. And I recommend going on the busiest days. Demo companies will often ask you to go, hey, do you want to be there on a Tuesday? It's like, no, I want to be there on a weekend, for example, depending on the retailer. Their schedules at a demo company, again, having run one, everybody wanted demos on the weekends. And so I would try to get people to go during the week so I could spread out the hours. That's not really your problem as a brand. Your job is to make sure these demos give you an ROI. So make sure you're challenging them. And then kind of the little insight I want to give you is doing demos at the same stores on the same day of the week over 2 weeks has proven to be the most effective in creating sustained post demonstration lifts. So doing the one demo, good. But if you can do them twice on the same day and I'm touching people a couple of times, we have a better chance of creating a consumer who's going to stick and increase that post demo velocity. So okay, if you're well-funded, merchandising is a must. And also on this slide, we'll talk about, well, but if you don't have the money, what do you do? So I've used companies, I have Dirty Hands there, top left-hand side, and Relentless Trade. A guy named Robert Macias over there is like the godfather of merchandising. Um, I've used them very successfully. And when launching, especially in certain retailers, and an example would be if I'm launching in like a Whole Foods and SoPac region, oftentimes I've had challenges getting the product to actually like get on shelf during a reset. And so, I either need to go visit every store or I need to find someone like a Dirty Hands to go make sure that product is on shelf. I recommend a minimum of 2 to 3 visits to each store starting on week 3 post reset to ensure that we're on shelf. There's no voids, right? That we've optimized location on shelf. Depending on the retailer, we have to either adhere to the schematic or sometimes they're looser in some areas. Then I want to make sure that I'm, asking my merchandiser to put me in the best spot. Price tags in place, IRCs or instant redeemable coupons are, you can leverage your merchandisers to do that as well to create more velocity. And then creating secondary placements. And secondary placements are I guess, the panacea, the holy grail, if you will. In fact, I once told Relentless Trade, like, I'll keep you forever doing merchandising if you can get me secondary placements in key retailers. We'll find, especially if that's like an end cap or a bunker, those secondary placements can triple, quadruple velocity at shelf. So very, very important in that area. And then after launch, merchandising should be considered when product or brand voids are growing. I'm seeing my velocity dropping at this chain. What's going on? And then also the other reason to keep on going certainly is those secondary placements. And I recommend early January merchandising especially in the natural space. January is such an important month, and most retailers are coming out of the holiday season where they kind of re-merchandise their sets to make room for all the holiday items. So January usually is that new year, new you. Most brands are promoting in the month of January. So I love to have merchandisers get in there early January, maybe end of December, to make sure that I'm on shelf, I'm ready to go, I'm ready to launch this year in an amazing way. And then I promised you, I would tell you what to do if you do not have the money for merchandising. And I've worked with brands very successfully in this area as well. And depending on the retailer, we've had internal people with the brand calling stores, asking for the department manager, building a relationship, sending out a swag box, we call it. It's maybe a hat and a shirt, maybe some VIP coupons, maybe an actual sample of the product, sending them directly into the stores. Not always possible, but that's one thing we've done. And certainly, where you have I always recommend launching in your local market as much as possible. Certainly, you getting out into the stores and meeting the department managers yourselves and handing out that swag and making sure your product is merchandised can also be done. But if you have the money, merchandising can really create a huge ROI in terms of getting that product on shelf and driving velocity. Okay, so testing promotional strategies against promotional and post-promotional lifts is table stakes. So I'll talk a bit more about that as we go through. But for an early stage brand, if you think about it, the goal is to build awareness and really to create trial. We need to get product into people's mouths. They've never tried it before. They don't know who we are. And the primary tool is generally that's really even available to us is promos, TPRs, combined with in-store demonstrations. And established brands, well, I'm already on shelf. People know who my brand is. And I may have some more leverage too with the retailer. In that case, I think about special merchandising, secondary placements. I'm thinking of Whole Foods, where we were able to do it was a frozen refrigerated product. We were able to get a secondary placement through the retailer in a bunker. We had a plant-based meat merchandised with fresh tortillas and salsa, and velocity went through the roof. So it's really different early stage. Early stage is just promotion demos, get in people's mouths, and there's so much more you can do as you become a larger brand to drive velocity. Here's testing promotional strategies is important. Example here below the green check mark is a plant-based organic brand. It was a bar company. We were testing different SRPs or different retails at shelf for promotions, and you can see the 6 that we tested, and we're evaluating it for, hey, what's happening during the promo, what's happening post. In this example, you see where it says pre-promo and post. This is pre-promotion, during the promotion, post. And we were testing out, I think in this case, we were testing at 2 for 5. It's a bit more expensive than we liked. We ended up settling at 2 for 6 was the way to go. But you can see pre-promotion in December, and maybe not the best time of year also for a brand like this. The promo drove a lot of trial. You can see it there. All the green is incremental growth from the prior week, or from the prior weeks. And then we go post. Well, post is amazing. Look at that. We drove the velocity up all January of last year, and then it stuck. This is the dream. And this is where, hey, maybe if your velocity is a little lower than where you want it to be, but you can show that every time you're doing promotions, there's a lift that sticks. That is the holy grail. And typically, category managers will give you a lot more time when they see this behavior happening. When I see a pre-promotion level, then a high promo, and going back to the pre-promotion level, which I'm seeing more and more, I think because of consumer challenges around inflation, it just isn't a great story, right? Because people tried it and they're not willing to pay the normal price for it, and so it just it's not ideal. So testing out different promotional strategies. Again, we tested out just being 50 cents less or being 70 cents less, but we found in bars, for example, that especially that 2 for 6, 2 for 5, even I think 3 for 8 ended up being really, really good. So we don't know until we test. All we have in all of these situations is a hypothesis that we're testing in the market. And stay close to your category manager. I find that a lot of people will launch at shelf. They're like watching velocity and doing all these things, but they're not staying close to the category manager, and not too close, right? You're not emailing the category manager every week, asking them for data, ideally, because you'll upset them. But you're bringing new line extensions. You're talking to them about future line extensions, and for larger retailers, you're talking to them about maybe exclusive launches. You can obtain data. And again, I don't want you to be bugging your category manager every week for it, but you can certainly ask permission. Hey, could I reach out maybe once a month for the first few months? Because we're an emerging brand, for example, we don't have spins data. Would you be willing to help me? Also reviewing promotional performance and ideate on future promotions. I mean, I find the category managers are the expert, as they should be, about their category at that retailer, especially if they've been there for a while, and they can give you advice. And most of them are more than happy to do it. You can also get ideas, and this one's like maybe the special takeaway. I find that a lot of brands don't even ask about it, is get ideas for special marketing activities going on at the retailer. Is there a special promotion, sale? Can I get connected to the marketing team at the retailer? Why not? I find that's actually one of my big learnings is I always, when we're launching a product, connect the marketing team for the brand to the marketing team, the retailer, as much as we possibly can. So marketing levers, again, a few years ago, a lot of these marketing levers I didn't see the value in, but they're becoming more valuable. Social nature, a few of my brands have used social nature, and it's Blent. And Blent, what I mean is it just drives velocity. It's going to cost a lot, but it will make things happen. And had a lot of success, especially in Sprouts and Whole Foods, in creating a really amazing data story by leveraging social nature. The other fun thing about social nature is they create through how they operate, reviews are collected, and those reviews can be syndicated. So when you launch at Target, for example, Target.com, you would be able to syndicate all those reviews and have like 1,000 reviews day one on Target. So that could be really helpful to you. The last promotion we did at Social Nature is about $25,000. So this isn't like a $200 or $1,000 thing. This is a major investment, and it is effective. The other one is Aisle. I've only recently started seeing my brands use them, and I started using it personally just to play around with it. And this idea of building an SMS, like getting people's cell phone numbers so you're able to communicate with them. Aisle helps you with that. And with Aisle, you could do a 50% off or a free product. We find that when you get free products on Aisle, it is crazy more effective than doing like a 50% off. And certainly I wouldn't even try doing 25%. It doesn't seem to move the needle at all. So aisle is good. Digital coupons. I love digital coupons in the sense that I can set a budget. Hey, we're going to do $5,000 of digital coupons and then we're done. That's great. The costs can be a little bit higher. Oftentimes when we're doing promotions at retailers, they just want to be margin percent whole. So you're not fully funding penny for penny the reduction in your retail. In coupons, you're funding all of it, plus you're paying a clipping fee and some other costs. And with coupons, we find that unless you're going to give a deep discount, like at least 35% and ideally 50%, they typically do not get clipped or used very often. So it can be ineffective unless you're going to spend the money. And again, this will drive velocity if you're giving a large discount. One other comment is that each retailer has their own digital coupon kind of platform. Inmar does a lot of them for a number of the retailers. So a digital coupon you're doing at Sprouts won't work at like Publix, for example. Typically, you need to set them up by retailer through an entity like Inmar. Instacart, they've done an amazing job. I have a brand. We recently did a major Instacart promotion. We saw the velocity at Sprouts go through the roof. And then when we pulled that promotion, we saw the velocity drop and we're like, okay, so this does work. I've always been challenged by how Instacart credits themselves with driving a sale. And my concern is that sometimes you're seeing data like, look at all the people we drove to you and all the velocity we drove, but how many of those people are already going to buy us anyway? And so that's just something to be aware of. But I have seen anecdotally through real experience that this will drive velocity. Okay, let's see here. The right influencers. This is another area I didn't believe in 3 to 4 years ago, and I believe 100% in it. Bobby Parrish with 2 of my brands did awesome. We could see the increase in velocity in the data. There are no other promotions happening. This guy makes it happen. He'll do organic posts where you're not paying him. You can also pay him to do posts. I think he likes to get equity in companies too. So that's something you can talk to him about. But anything like this Flav City, Bobby Parrish is huge. Look at this, like top 10 finds at Aldi, 1.2 million views. He has 2.3 million followers on Instagram. These types of influencers make things happen. And I think there's generally an ROI here. Tracking your success. How do you know if you're winning? As an emerging brand, oftentimes you can't afford spins or Nielsen. So you're getting that data from the category manager, but you're not asking too much. All that matters is feedback from the category manager, right? It's like, are you happy? Am I closing the gap? Are we on the right track? Any ideas? The established brand. What we do for middle-sized and larger brands is we put together like a 3-hour monthly deep dive. We're digging into spends. We're looking at our ACV by region. We're looking at every single key retailer, what's going on, what's happening with my competitors. And so I highly recommend those 3-hour deep dives. If you're not doing it today as a middle-sized brand, it's so important to be disciplined about that. And happy to talk to anyone about that in deeper way. But I think we're at the end of my part of the presentation from the deck, and now totally open to your questions. I'll turn it back over to Sasha. If you want to book a complimentary one-on-one, I'd love to spend time with you. You can just email me. You can also reach out through our website, and look forward to talking to anyone that wants to chat.
Awesome. Thank you, Luke. We got a few questions. Someone also commented that chat wasn't enabled, so now it's enabled, so you can also either put your question in the chat box or in a Q&A. And so coming to the first question that is regarding promotions, what is the cadence of the 18 to 24 weeks of promotion besides being a little heavy on the front end?
Yeah, great question. And yeah, as I said, yeah, heavy on the front end. And that also could be front end of the year, especially if you're a natural brand. I want to be promoting more in that kind of January, February period is really important. And then I'd say typically I don't want to promote more than 1 month at a time, at least at the same SRP. So if I'm launching, I typically I'm gonna do a promo month 2, month 4, month 6, and then I might then do like month 9 and 11 after that. If I can do 6 promos, it would literally be every other month. and trying to time that intelligently, right? A promotional strategy is a whole science that we don't have time to get fully into today. But it's like, okay, well, when is summertime? When is the summer lull going to happen? Do I want to be promoting then? Or maybe I promote toward the end of August when people are kind of back to school again. There are two times in the year when people are generally making major changes in their life. We find it to be in kind of the January, February timeframe, the new year, new you, and back to school is the other time. So I want to make sure for sure I'm promoting during those times. And I'm probably, unless I'm like a salsa, a burger or something, I'm trying to maybe avoid like the kind of the July, late July, early August time period in promotions. I hope that's helpful.
Awesome. Thank you, Luke. Another question. What's the solution for Whole Foods since they don't use Instacart?
Yeah, right. I think that what I'm hearing about is that the Amazon platform is offering more options. I'm not sure if I know at least one of our brands is leveraging tools through Amazon to advertise for Whole Foods. I don't know a lot about that. It's something I want to research more and something we could do maybe an update on for the community. But a year, 2 years ago, there was really nothing you could do unless you were selected by Whole Foods in order to promote, for example, online or be part of the digital advertising. But I think now there's an ability to pay to play there. But again, I don't know too much about it.
Okay. How do you know what the top 20% performing
Ah,
stores are?
right. There's typically you ask, and if the retailer won't give it to you, you can ask friends, right? Brokers, other investors. Someone can get you that data, and um, it's important to have it. I almost like wouldn't do demos unless I could really figure that out because if I'm spending $200 at a D level store, like the worst performing store, it can be just a total loss. I really need to figure that out.
Yeah, thank you, Luke. Steve is asking if we're going to get the deck and a recording. So yes, after this event later today, we'll send an email with recording. Another question I'll ask you, Luke.
Yeah.
So let's say a brand is launching at a retailer X and a category manager is saying that here's our ask for required ads. You need to newsletters, PPRs, and as emerging brands, all the time it's a lot of money, a lot of investment. So, is there a space to negotiate it with
Yeah.
with the buyer, and how to even approach it?
Yeah, it's great. So this goes back to the core I was talking about. When I have the right product at the right price at the right time, and there's a buzz being built around my product, then definitely there's room to negotiate because the job of the category manager is it's growing their and maintaining a margin target. It's growing their comp sales, year over year sales, and unfortunately, it's also bringing in income from ads, right, and promotions that they charge you fees. If you don't want to pay those fees, then you have to be showing up in the other ways, right? Am I helping to drive margin in the category? Or am I going to grow comp sales, right? So it's like I have to be able to ultimately I can't ask a category manager to do something that's going to cause them to lose their bonus, right? Now, maybe that category manager is having a great year. Then, we've had conversations where it's like, hey, we're a small emerging company. I know your company has a heart for brands like ours, and these fees aren't there. I promise you, if you give us a shot with just doing TPRs and maybe a half case free fill, we will be there for you. And it means the world to us. And approaching in a very humble way, generally, I've had a lot of success in that area. Again, when I have the right product at the right time, at the right
Mhm.
price. If I don't have those things and the category manager isn't sold on me, I'm really fighting a battle that's almost impossible to win.
Yeah, and definitely having a good relationship with the buyer would help as well, right?
Right. Yeah. And I'll
Um,
maybe comment for just 20 seconds on that. And the good relationship with the buyer, like I often get asked, like, how often, what's the cadence of connection? It's certainly not emailing every day, right? And checking in. I Depending on the person, you can kind of see how they respond to you. I like the idea of like a monthly check-in with my buyer and just say, hey, here's the data we see, here's what's going on, here's some pictures of me out in the stores, here's some asks. Keeping it also super concise. People do not have time. often buying for thousands of brands, and you have to be really, concise and direct and kind and humble in our approach.
Yeah, thank you, Luke. Another question we got from Steven. Is it true that after landing on shelf, you should only look to break break even in one due to needing to build trial and brand awareness?
Okay, so I think you're asking the idea of profitability year one, and yeah, that's it. This is the idea I was sharing about building out kind of your forecast model and getting key advisors to help you build that out so you can kind of understand the cash flow, especially for a larger launch. Most brands today, if your gross margin when you're selling to K or Unify is below 45%, typically aren't profitable to start out with. If you are above 45% and you're, being reasonable in how you're promoting and very rational in the approach, especially in the natural channel, I would say year one, I think about it as being kind of break even with a key retailer. And if I do my job right, I invested early, I drove that velocity, I kind of broke through the atmosphere out into space, if you will. Then I can pull back a little bit year two. But really, in my opinion, I'm probably going to spend a lot year one, go back a little bit year two, and then year three, just when that velocity is strong, everyone's happy with me, I can then breathe a little bit more and then keep my foot on the gas pedal and be taking a little bit more profit.
Thanks, Steven. I hope this answered your question. I don't have any other right now, but we can wait a little bit. And in the meantime, well, maybe you can tell us a little bit about how you work with your our clients.
Yeah. And you're breaking up a little bit. I think your internet may not be working the way it should over there, Sasha. But I think you're asking me like how we work. And yeah, we work with brands. I think Sasha mentioned it. A couple the easier things is deduction management. We help by deductions that are erroneous and help brands understand deductions, and where they're coming from and fighting back against the ones that they shouldn't be billed for. And then accounting, we find that a lot of companies are working with like bookkeepers that really don't understand CPG accounting, and that becomes a problem. And really being able to use our books and our financials as a report card to help us manage our business. We also do straight consulting. My famous product is a 3-hour deep dive where we dig into your purpose and mission. We do a SWOT analysis. Like what are your strengths and weaknesses of your company, of your brand, of your team? What are the opportunities and threats in the marketplace? And then we figure out how to attack that together by putting together a series of goals that are accountable and achievable. And then we also represent brands into the 70 largest natural retailers in America, or the 70 key ones, as small as a Berkeley Bowl in NorCal to certainly the largest ones, the Whole Foods, Sprouts, Fresh Time, Fresh Market. And we do so with a different philosophy than, like, for example, like the broker community would take. We see it as, we're testing a hypothesis. We're really good at getting feedback. We're known as a company that works with a lot of really kind of innovative brands that will grow the category. And so we build deeper relationships that way. It's not just about product. I think there's another question.
Well said. Yes, another question we have from Christine. How do you keep the sales momentum going through certain KDCs? We are seeing a good jump start in sales with MCBs, but it falls off after the first promotion.
Yeah, that we have some strong opinions in our company about that. First off, typically I don't want to open a distribution center unless I have an anchor account. Opening up distribution centers around independence is very difficult. I may start off strong, they take the free fill, and then it just kind of fades away. I like having anchor business that creates constant flow through that distribution center and takes the pressure off. Certainly, if I am opening up with independents, it's almost like the buyer at the larger retailer. I want to stay close to the buyers at those independents as well. How are things going, right? Can I send you some swag? Can I send you some VIP coupons so your team can try the product? The smaller retailers often do not have schematics, and it's often a tremendous amount of discretion up to the person who's merchandising, like what gets to go where. So your ability to build those relationships will help you drive velocity and help you have distribution center health. And again, going back to where I started, it's so important that you have anchor customers to help make that DC in a more sustainable way in the long term. Thank you for that question.
Thank you, Luke. Miguel, we have a business model for full container sales abroad. In the States, do you see the orders can be negotiated at minimum order quantities at 50 to foot truck level or so, or chains or large distributors require pallet orders?
Yeah, good question. So I think and again, you're breaking up. I think I heard what you said though. Is this the idea of, as we're getting you're bringing in full containers, you're trying to figure out like what minimums that you can establish. And um, in many ways, if we think about KK Unify as being a 3PL, you can establish higher minimums, especially if you have a core customer like a Sprouts or a Whole Foods, like really, or a Kroger, for example, if it's going through DPI, or I think Albertsons, it could be going through KeHE. Like we have those bigger retailers that are going to move the volume, then it'll make sense. The thing is that distributors are allowed by usually their contracts to make sure that the product they're bringing in actually moves through at a reasonable rate, and they're not being forced to tie up a tremendous amount of cash in product that's going to sit there for 2, 3, 4, 5 months. I think typically distributors are not going to be happy at all about carrying more than 3 months of demand in their distribution center. And typically they want to carry much less. So it's really, the equation is really, what does the demand look like? What is the demand that's going to drive it through the distribution center? And if it's not there, then getting them to buy a whole container is going to be very, very, very difficult and probably won't be able to be accomplished.
Okay, Miguel, if you have any other follow-up questions, feel free to put it in the chat box. I will also put in the chat box contact information if you want to reach out to Luke and just discuss directly any challenges you're having, goals. He's a very busy man, but he'll find time in his calendar. And okay, I guess if we don't have any other questions, I will just thank you so much, Luke, for this presentation. Yeah, anyone, feel free to reach out to us if we can help with in any way. We'll be sending the recording, and we'll be also organizing another masterclass next month. So make sure that you keep an eye on your inbox to not miss the invitation. So, all right. Well, I hope you guys have a. Thank you and Happy New Year.
Take care.